Okay, so the moment I've been waiting for, Superman, just got back from the theater about an hour or two ago, and I've been letting this movie kind of marinate. I want to give my thoughts on it. This has been not only my most anticipated film of this year, it's been my most anticipated film since it's been announced. Since it was announced that the DCEU was going to be rebooted into the DCU, that James Gunn was going to redo Superman, it's been my most anticipated superhero comic book film ever since that time frame. Not like all time. We still got Infinity War, Endgame. I'm just talking about within that time period. In the past 2 to 3 years, this has been my most anticipated film. This movie had a lot of expectations for me going into it, and I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, as I was looking at the reviews were very, very mixed as we went through. Like, some people just did not like this movie, other people loved this movie, and I really went in with very low expectations, to be honest with you. I was like, okay, let me put this in check. Let's go in with low expectations because I don't want to be disappointed. Let's kind of like not, let's not go in with preconceived notions of this movie has to be Infinity War or Endgame. And I tell you what, after leaving the theater, I freaking loved this movie. This is the Superman movie that I have literally waited decades for. Like, I have not been this happy of like, after seeing a Superman movie since Superman 2. You know, and it's the Superman movie that I've wanted, man. It's the Superman film that I, as a Superman fan, as a kid who was born in the 80s, grew up with Christopher Reeves, and loved the character, read the comic books, watched the TV shows, watched the animated movies, watched the animated shows. I waited for a Superman film that would just bring me happiness and joy. Superman is more than just beating the crap out of a monster and running through like Metropolis and destroying stuff. It's more about it's more than just destruction. Superman is a character who tries to do good and tries to inspire the right thing for people. He is a beacon for us to look at and go, I want to be that guy. I want that. No matter what, this is the guy that you want to be your leader, your front and center guy. Much like I felt like the MCU really encapsulated that with Captain America Steve Rogers. Right? Steve Rogers was the guy, no matter what, this guy was going to do the right thing. And he is not going to just turn for no reason. He's not like, when things are down, this guy still looks at the sun, right? He's still the bright beacon. Captain America Steve Rogers was that guy. One would argue that's why the MCU just doesn't feel the same anymore. It's like when Ultron was taken over, Captain America was like, you know what? If you die, walk it off. Keep going. When everybody was snapped to infinity during Infinity War, everybody was snapped to dust, right? Captain America was like, hey, we got to move on. We got to, like, he looked at the bright side. He was the hope for the MCU. Superman is the hope for the DCU. And we haven't had that for a long time. I would argue probably not since Smallville. I haven't felt like that since Smallville. I know the new Superman show, really, really good. I watched the first 2 seasons, haven't seen it. But I'm talking about live action movie wise. This was the Superman that I waited decades for. Decades for, man. I was so happy leaving this movie. Does that mean the movie's perfect? Absolutely not. There's definitely things in the movie that I could say, okay, well, I didn't like how that went. I wish they would have done something different with this. But man, and I'll tell you what, I was really afraid going into this that James Gunn, it was going to be like a James Gunn type film, right? If you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy or the Suicide Squad, I was really worried that the humor was going to, I thought it was going to be like Thor Love and Thunder. The humor was going to overtake the movie. That's not the case. In fact, I think I laughed very little in this movie. Right? Like, I think I laughed way more in Thunderbolts than I did this movie. I was so just invested in the character. There were moments where I laughed. Like Crypto, I thought was hilarious. I thought Mr. Terrific had some good one-liners. Guy Gardner was a little humorous every now and then. And even Superman, he had a couple like moments where, like you saw in the trailer, where he's like, "Man, I'm doing important stuff." Like I thought that was funny, but it wasn't like ha 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 jokes every 5 seconds. It wasn't Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It wasn't Thor Love and well, nothing's Thor Love and Thunder. That movie's just trash. But as much as I like James Gunn, I did not like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I just felt like it was too much humor. And I was worried going into Superman that we would have that situation, and it wasn't. In fact, Crypto, who I thought might overpower the movie with just comedy and just being everywhere, there's a good part of this movie he's not even in the movie. And when he does show up, it helps the character, it helps break a lot of the tension. I liked the Justice Squad. I like that. I like them. I loved Guy Gardner, man. I'm not the biggest fan of Guy Gardner in the comic. I really like his portrayal in this movie, like how he's put together in this movie. I like Mr. Terrific. Hawk Girl, we didn't get to see a whole lot of, but I'll tell you what, man, the relationship between Lois and Superman, Lois and Clark, it's so good. It's so good. You feel for them. They feel like a couple. They feel like a newly put together couple. Like these guys just kind of got together. And by the end of it, you really believe the chemistry between Superman and Lois. And it's like Jimmy Olsen was great. I love Jimmy Olsen. I thought Nicholas Hoult did a great job as Lex Luthor. Not my favorite live screen adaptation of Lex. I think that's always going to be Michael Rosenbaum. But in terms of best live action movie Lex, I think he is the best live action movie Lex. No insult to Gene Hackman. He played a very different type of Lex back in the 70s and 80s. And Jesse Eisenberg, that wasn't Lex. And Kevin Spacey, I thought would be like the second best Lex, despite how he is in real life. I'm just talking about his character. Kevin Spacey, I thought, made a pretty good Lex Luthor. But yeah, I thought Nicholas Hoult, and he did some stuff that was really evil in this movie. Like stuff where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that in the movie. And two, I can't believe Lex did that. Because there's times where Lex is just, he's diabolical, man. That dude is evil. Like he does some crazy crap. The movie is not perfect, but I loved it so much. It felt like a comic book, or maybe an episode of the animated series brought to life. If you read Superman comics, it feels like they're taking everything that is in those comics and putting it in live action. And it felt great. I'm getting and I hate making the comparison, but I get such early MCU vibes from this movie. Right, everything I loved in the MCU in phases 1, 2, and 3, I felt like I got in this movie. You have real tension, you have real stakes, you have real character development, you have the comedy, but the comedy is parts of joy. It doesn't overtake the movie. Where one could argue now that most of the MCU movies now are just straight comedies. You go back and look at Thor: Love and Thunder, and it's just like ha ha through the whole thing. And I feel like James Gunn really kind of, like, he was able to walk that line where, yes, you have moments of, humor in the movie, but it was reserved for different characters. Like Jimmy Olsen wasn't he wasn't a comedian, but some of the stuff he did was pretty funny. The stuff with Miss Tessmacher and Jimmy, I thought was really funny. It worked really well, and it made sense for the movie. There were so many different things in this movie where there were moments that were funny, but it didn't overtake the movie. Some people are like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like, this movie's all over the place. The structure of this movie doesn't make sense. And I don't feel that way at all. Like, I felt like, okay, you go into the movie, you start off right off the bat, you're into the movie, and the plot moves forward. There was a part, and this is sort of my nitpick, and it's not a spoiler, but something happens with Lex and the turn on Superman, And it happens really early in Act 1. And I was like, oh man, they're really not building up to that. It's like, boom, Lex just does it. And then from that moment on, it's just off to the races. And Lex is just doing, like, it feels like a cartoon and a comic book. Like, Lex is doing bad things, and Superman has to try to stop all these bad things. And then finally, that leads into the third act where everything comes together, and Superman and the Justice Squad has to kind of, stop this evil thing that Lex has done. And Lex has no remorse for human life at all. It's all to serve his purposes. And I absolutely just, man, I plan on going to see this movie again. And that's the thing. It's very rare where I go back and rewatch superhero movies lately. I think the last superhero movie I watched more than once in theaters was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and before that it was Spider-Man No Way Home. I saw those movies multiple times. Other than that, it's been years since Endgame, since Marvel Phase 3 ended, since I've seen a movie multiple times in theaters. And this is a movie where I'm like, man, I want to go back and see this now. If I could, I would go back and see this now. This is the Superman movie that I wanted. It's a Superman that inspires hope, that's a beacon of light, that this is our guy. He's going to do what's right no matter what the perception is. He knows what's right. And there's some stuff that goes on with Jor-El in this movie that people might be on the fence about, but I don't think that's the whole story. I'm going to get more into the spoiler stuff in my podcast later tonight on Storms Live, where we're going to get into all the deep spoiler stuff. But the stuff that happened with Jor-El, I think that we've seen stuff like that in Smallville and in the comic books, so that's not the whole story. But man, if you want to go see a good action superhero film that has all the elements of drama, suspense, happiness, hope, action, it's this movie. Like, this is probably my favorite comic book movie since Endgame, if we're not counting Spider-Man No Way Home or Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Like, man, it's the Superman movie I waited for years. This was the Superman movie I kept saying, I want this Superman movie, man. I want a movie that is true to the character of who Superman is, that does Superman stuff. A Superman that stops and says, are you guys okay? Or a Superman that goes to help people. There's a scene in this movie where Superman, like, all this destruction is going on, and he stops and saves a squirrel, and I'm like, that's Superman. That is Superman. There's some great monologues in this movie. There's some like a speech that Superman gives toward the end, and it just gave me all types of goosebumps. And even though I'll tell you, man, it's not a perfect movie, it exceeded my expectations. It did. It exceeded what I wanted. It exceeded my expectations. I am so excited for the future of the DCU. I'm excited for Supergirl. Can't wait to see what happens in that movie. Can't wait to see what's going to happen with the future of the DCU and Superman. So I'm going to go ahead and give this movie a 9. I'm going to give it a 9 or a 9.5 out of 10. I haven't decided yet. Right now I'm leaning on a 9. Like I said, in Storms Live, the spoiler review tonight on the podcast, I will be going over some of the stuff that kind of didn't sit too well with me. They weren't that big of a deal. Wasn't a game breaker, but I was like, oh, well, they could have done something a little different there. But overall, left the theater extremely happy, extremely excited, had hope in my heart, and just a massive grin from ear to ear as I left that theater. So that's my thoughts on Superman. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Think it's the right step in the right direction for James Gunn and the Superman and DCU franchise moving forward. That's just my thoughts on it. What do you guys think? Leave your comments in the comment box below. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed here on the channel. We have been going up in subs. Could use a little more subs, so please do me a favor. You see that over there? Hit that subscribe button. I would appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. And I will check you in the podcast on our live stream later where we talk about spoilers. Thank you guys. Take it easy. Stay safe. Bye.